The Gatekeeper. Explanation in support of insight meditation practice extracted from Venerable Mahāsī Sayādaw, Venerable Sayādaw u Sīlānandābhivaṃsa, and Venerable Sayādaw u Paṅḍiṭabhivaṃsa. Selected by Thamanaykyaw. Meaning of noting. The word noting means to pay attention to a meditative object, purpose to be aware of phenomena that are really happening from moment to moment. What matter? In vipassana meditation, what you name or say doesn't matter. What really matters is to know or perceive. Don't change the object yet. Don't change the object yet. Even though another object may arise, there is no need to change it if attention on the primary object is not distracted. Sitting meditation. During the sitting meditation, you are supposed to know rising and falling of the abdomen as the primary object. When the secondary objects, such as pain, wandering thoughts, become prominent, you can note them too. Not a problem. When one object is labeled, he or she may become aware of 4, 5, or 10 other objects. This is not a problem. Synonyms. The point of this commentary is that contemplation of mind, cittanupassana, is noting the mind the moment it arises. Here I translate the word salakento as one observes. In other words, a person notes. The terms to note, to observe, and to bear in mind are all synonyms for the purposes of insight practice. Never out of sight. Yogis should behave like these 3 persons: a footballer, a badminton player, and a boxer. A footballer never loses sight of the football. A badminton player never loses sight of the shuttlecock. A boxer never loses sight of his opponent's movements. So too, the yogi has to try not to lose sight of the object of mindfulness. Mind your speed. When driving on the freeway, one may be driving at 60 or 70 or even 80 miles per hour. Driving at that speed, one will not be able to read some of the signs on the road. If one wants to read those signs, it is necessary to slow down. Nobody has to say slow down. The driver will automatically slow down in order to see the signs. In the same way, if yogis want to pay closer attention to the movements of lifting, moving forward, putting down and pressing the ground, they will automatically slow down. Only when they slow down can they be truly mindful and fully aware of these movements. Keep it on. The practice of mindfulness meditation can be compared to boiling water. If one wants to boil water, one puts the water in a kettle, puts the kettle on a stove, and then turns the heat on. But if the heat is turned off, even for an instant, the water will not boil, even though the heat is turned on again later. If one continues to turn the heat on and off again, the water will never boil. In the same way, if there are gaps between the moments of mindfulness, one cannot gain momentum, and so one cannot attain concentration. That is why yogis at our retreats are instructed to practice mindfulness all the time that they are awake, from the moment they wake up in the morning until they fall asleep at night. Practice makes perfect. In the beginning, as the mind wanders here and there, the yogi may miss noting many things, but he should not be disheartened. Every beginner in meditation encounters the same difficulty. But as he becomes more practiced, he becomes aware of every act of mind wandering until eventually the mind does not wander anymore. There is a saying, practice makes perfect. Patience leads to Nibbana. This saying is most relevant in meditational effort. One must be patient in meditation. If one shifts or changes one's posture too often because one cannot be patient with the sensation of stiffness or heat that arises, concentration cannot be developed. If concentration cannot develop, insight cannot result, and there can be no attainment of Magga, the path that leads to Nibbana. Phala, the fruit of that path, and Nibbana. That is why patience is needed in meditation. If you want to develop concentration, you must have patience. If you want to gain insight knowledge, you must have patience. If you want to attain Magga Jnana and Phala Jnana, you must have patience. If you want to become Sotapanna, you must have patience. If you want to become Sakadagami, you must have patience. If you want to become Anagami, you must have patience. If you want to become Arahat, you must have patience. If you want to attain Nibbana, you must have patience. No pain, no gain. In the beginning of the yogi's meditational practice, these sensations may tend to increase and lead to a desire to change his posture. This desire should be noted, after which the yogi should go back to noting the sensations of stiffness, heat, etc. One should not immediately give up one's meditation on the appearance of such sensations and change one's meditational posture. One should go on patiently, just noting as stiffness, stiffness, or hot, hot. Moderate sensations of these kinds will disappear if one goes on noting them patiently. When concentration is good and strong, even intense sensations tend to disappear. One then reverts to noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. One will, of course, have to change one's posture if the sensations do not disappear, even after one has noted them for a long time, and if, on the other hand, they become unbearable. One should then begin noting as wishing to change, wishing to change. Then you should change your posture slowly and mindfully. There is a saying, no pain, no gain. Fire. A meditating yogi should behave like this person who is producing fire by energetically and unremittingly rubbing two sticks of wood together so as to attain the necessary intensity of heat when the flame arises. In the same way, the noting in vipassana meditation should be continual and unremitting, without any resting interval between acts of noting whatever phenomena may arise. There must be no intermission in between, only contiguity between a preceding act of noting and a succeeding one, between a preceding samadhi, state of concentration, and a succeeding one, between a preceding act of intelligence and a succeeding one. Only then will there be successive and ascending stages of maturity in the yogi's stage of intelligence. Magga jnana and phala jnana, knowledge of the path and its fruition, are attained only when there is this kind of gathering momentum. All the same, all at once. When you look up to the sky on a rainy day, you see a flash of lightning. This bright light is the characteristic of the lightning. As lightning flashes, darkness is dispelled. This dispelling of darkness is the function of lightning, its work. You also see what it is like, whether it is long, short, a curve, a circle, straight, or vast. You see its characteristic, its function, its manifestation, all at once. Only you may not be able to say the brightness is its characteristic, dispelling of darkness is its function, or its shape, or outline its manifestation. But you see them all the same. In the same way, when you meditate on the rising mind matter, you know its characteristic, its function, its manifestation, everything. You need not learn them. Some learned persons think that you have to learn them before you meditate. Not so. What you learn are only name concepts, not realities. The meditator who is contemplating the rising mind, matter, knows them as if he were touching them with his own hand. He need not learn about them. If there is an elephant before your very eyes, you need not look at the picture of an elephant. You cannot step into the same river twice. There is a Western saying that may explain the law of impermanence. You cannot step into the same river twice. Yet the impermanence they see is still a conceptual idea. Paññāti anicca. They do not really see impermanence from their own experience. So their knowledge of impermanence is very superficial. They do not even think the mind and body to be unpleasant, soulless, and beautyless. It is density of metal and physical phenomena, gana, that makes people think the mind and body are lasting forever, like the continuity of a water current that makes a river seem to be forever. Only when you can see real mind and body in terms of their own characteristics can you see them dissolving moment by moment. That is the knowledge of impermanence gained from your own practice experience. Only then will you gain the perception of non-self, anatta sanya. Be instrumental. It is not easy to see the truth destroying such a deep-seated delusion without an instrument. For example, if an object is too subtle or minute to see through the naked eyes, we should take the help of the spectacles, a magnifying glass, or a microscope. In the same way, in order to see the truth, destroying the delusion, all we have to do to observe present objects with ardent effort, mindfulness, and concentration. In due course of time, we will gain inside knowledge, which enables us to see the truth destroying the deep delusion. That is why the Buddha said thus, "A monk spends his time seeing body, physical phenomena in the body, being energetic, clearly comprehending and mindful, eradicating covetousness and hatred. Making effort in noting present objects continuously, you can develop the mindfulness and concentration. With the help of these three instruments, you can see real phenomena in terms of stiffness, tension, etc., beyond the conceptual form, shape, or manner." No gaps. Momentary concentration is compared to a rope that is made up of many small fibers. Each small fiber is fragile and breakable. But when they are entwined into a rope, the rope becomes amazingly strong. In the same way, in the case of pure vipassana practice, the concentration lasts only moment by moment, because it is established on phenomena that are arising and disappearing moment by moment. So it cannot be strong. However, if you can develop it continuously, with no gaps in between, by noting phenomena continuously, it can become strong enough to penetrate into the truth or to develop vipassana insights stage by stage until you become fully enlightened. The Buddha said you should develop concentration. If you have concentration, you can see the true nature of the objects. According to this Buddha teaching, you should develop concentration to attain insight knowledge. Read carefully. One who reads a book lightly is not aware of all the letters in it. He will come to be more aware of them if he reads carefully. Similarly, a yogi who is superficially mindful does not completely comprehend the object noted. If he is attentively mindful, he will come to know more. If the yogi wants to know more, he should be more attentively mindful. The more attentively mindful he is, the more he knows. When labeling is optional. When the objects to be noted are occurring at a rapid rate, the yogi may not be able to keep pace with labeling and noting them at each occurrence. He should then let go of labeling and just look at them attentively with his mind. Or, if he wants to keep on labeling, he should just note as much as he can. Magnifying power. One can see even minute things under a strong magnifying glass. A yogi can see even a minute phenomena when the power of concentration is strong. An empty bottle. If one country intrudes into another, for example, they may not be able to occupy the whole country at once. They have to occupy one division after another. Another example is when an empty bottle is filled up with water, drop by drop. Every drop of water replaces the same amount of air inside the bottle. In the same way, every moment of mindfulness will replace the same amount of mental defilements. Thus, mental defilements reduce bit by bit until they are totally eradicated. Gatekeeper. Sati, mindfulness, is like a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper does not admit bad people. He admits good people. Sati does not admit unwholesomeness, akusala. It admits wholesomeness, kusala. As the Buddha said in Anguttara Nikaya, Nagarapama Sutta. With mindfulness as his gatekeeper, the noble disciple abandons the unwholesome and develops the wholesome, abandons what is blameworthy and develops what is blameless, and maintains himself in purity. Like illness and fire. Polluted minds are just like illness and fire. You should prevent the illness before it arises. And when it arises, you should cure it right away. Similarly, you should prevent fire from breaking out. If it breaks out, you should extinguish it right away. To prevent mental defilements from arising, you have to note the presently arising objects with aim, full attention, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. And when these defilements arise, you should cure them right away by noting them as soon as you can. Anyway, prevention is always better than cure. By noting the presently arising object. If you can note one object after another continuously, with aim and effort, there will be less wandering. Even though the wandering arises, you will know it right away. You can gain control over your mind by noting the presently arising objects with aim and effort. For example, if the parents cannot take care of their children properly, then the child may hang around with gangsters and may later become a gangster. In the same way, the mind naturally goes to desirable objects and is associated with lust or hatred. You should take care of your mind by noting the presently arising object with aim and effort so that the mind will not wander or go astray. If you find your mind associated with evil thoughts, you should note it as soon as you notice it, so that they stop right away. It is what is called Citta Nupassana, contemplation on the mind. You cannot get it on credit in Vipassana practice. Even though you can buy something on credit and pay for it later, no credit is given in the case of Vipassana. So you must note an object the moment it takes place, lest you become attached to it. Yogi's job. Just note continuously whatever occurs. That is a yogi's job. Torchlight. At night, for example, one cannot see things clearly. But if one uses torchlight, things can be clearly seen in the spotlight. In the same way, concentration can be compared to light, through which one can see phenomena clearly, the manner of rising and falling, and the tension, tightness, and movement, etc. As the Buddha said in Samyutta Samadhi Sutta, Samadhim Bhikkhave Bhavata Samahito Bhikkhave Bhikkhu Yatta Bhuttam Pajanati. Bhikkhus develop concentration. A bhikkhu who is concentrated understands things as they really are. Mindfulness. Since you are practicing mindfulness, you need to get to know it well. mindfulness has characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. The characteristic of mindfulness is not to float on the surface of the object. Pilapana lakana. The characteristic of mindfulness is to penetrate deep into the aware object. Apilapana lakana. The characteristic of mindfulness is to sink into the aware object. Apilapana lakana. The function of mindfulness is not to forget the object. Asamosarasa. The function of mindfulness is not to lose the sight of the object. Asamosarasa. The manifestation of mindfulness is to go face to face with the object. Visaya, Vimukha, Bhava, Pachu, Patana. The manifestation of mindfulness is to protect the mind from defilements. Araka, Pachu, Patana. The manifestation of mindfulness is to prevent the defilements from arising. Avarana. The manifestation of mindfulness is to keep the mind secure against the defilements. Kuti. The proximate cause of mindfulness is the accurate perception of the sense objects. Tira, Sanya, Padatana. Suppose you are doing research. Every moment, different phenomena are arising. Therefore, mindfulness should be continuous to be aware of them. By being aware of one object after another, you can sustain mindfulness. You will not lose sight of the object. Suppose you are doing research. You should try your best not to lose sight of what you are observing. In the same way, you should note one object after another, so that you will not lose sight of the object. This is the function of mindfulness. Look at the Buddha's image. For example, if you want to take a look at the Buddha's image, you should face towards the image. Your attention should go face to face with the Buddha's image, so as to see it. In the same way, the mindfulness goes face to face with the object. In the case of vipassana practice, the noting mind should be face to face with the meditative object, so that it can be concurrent with the object. This is the manifestation of mindfulness. A cork and a rock. If you throw a cork into the water, for example, it will float on the surface, whereas a rock will sink into the water. In the same way, the mindfulness will sink into the aware object. To explain from a practical aspect, if you note an object with aim and effort, the mind will sink into the object and experiences the phenomena involved. This is the characteristic of the mindfulness. Pile of merit. One moment of noting is available in each second. Thus, 60 moments in a minute, 3,600 in an hour, and 72,000 a day, except for the 4 hours for sleeping. This is a huge pile of merit. As the Buddha said, in Samyutta Nikaya, Akusalarasi Sutta. If bhikkhus, one were to say of anything, a heap of the wholesome, it is about the 4 establishments of mindfulness that one could rightly say this. For this is a complete heap of the wholesome, that is, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Yatta pakatam vipassana pikiniveso. The Satipatthana Sutta mentions 4 categories of meditative objects, such as physical objects, sensational object, mental object, and general object. You should start practicing Satipatthana meditation with the object that is most prominent. Visuddhi Magga Mahatika, sub-commentary on the path of purification, says, Yattapa katam vipassana pikiniveso equals vipassana focuses on whatever is prominent. Among the 4 categories, the physical object is mentioned first, because it is the most prominent. And this category consists of 2 kinds, 4 fundamental elements, Mahabhuta, and dependent elements, Upadaya. The 4 fundamental elements are more prominent than the other dependent elements. Again, among these 4 fundamental elements, the air element, characterized by stiffness, tension, movement, etc., is the most prominent. That is why you should give priority to noting the air element that is obvious, especially in the in and out breathing, rising and falling of the abdomen, or lifting, moving, and placing of the feet. When a child starts going to school, for example, the first lessons he learns should be few and simple, so that he can learn well. In the same way, at the beginning of the practice, one should start practicing with objects that are easily perceivable or prominent. Otherwise, he or she might get confused. Like them, despite good eyes, as if he were blind, despite good ears, as if he were deaf, despite knowledge, as if he were dull, despite strength, as if he were weak. Moreover, if beneficial, he should lie down as if dead. River Ganges. Bhikkhus, just as the river Ganges slants, slopes, and inclines towards the east, so too bhikkhus, a bhikkhu who develops and cultivates the 4 establishments of mindfulness, slants, slopes, and inclines towards nibbana. Let the flesh and blood dry up. The scriptures are emphatic on the necessity of developing the very qualities of energetic vigor, which consists of 4 limbs: Vetietis, Katu, Ranga, Viriya, in the practice of meditation. In the hard struggle, one may be reduced to a mere skeleton of skin, bone, and sinew when his flesh and blood wither away and dry up, but he should not give up his efforts so long as he has not attained whatever is attainable by manly perseverance, energy, and endeavor. These instructions should be followed with a strong determination. Therefore, bhikkhus, you should train yourselves thus. We will strive indefatigably Resolved, willingly, let only my skin, sinews, and bones remain, and let the flesh and blood dry up in my body. But I will not relax my energy so long as I have not attained what can be attained by manly strength, energy, and exertion. It is in such a way that you should train yourselves. Sabang bhikkhave abhinayang. The Buddha said in Saṅyutta Nikaya, Anicca disuttanavakang, Sutta thus, Sabang bhikkhave abhinayam. All psychophysical phenomena should be noted or known. According to this teaching of the Buddha, we have to practice vipassana, or insight meditation, to understand correctly the nature of the psychophysical phenomena taking place in six sense doors. Whenever we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think of, we must note thus: seeing, seeing, hearing, hearing, smelling, smelling, tasting, tasting, touching, touching, or thinking, thinking. But in the beginning of our practice, we cannot note all phenomena, should therefore begin with noting objects which are conspicuous and easily perceivable. What should we do? We do not want the four bad things. What are they? Sorrow, lamentation, pain, and grief. We want the three good things. What are they? Purification of mind, the noble path, and nibbana. If we want to be free from the four bad things and to attain the three good things, what should we do? We should practice mindfulness meditation. Non-decline. Bhikkhus, I will teach you these six qualities that lead to non-decline. Listen and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Bhante, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this. And what, bhikkhus, are the six qualities that lead to non-decline? Not taking delight in work, not taking delight in talk, not taking delight in sleep, not taking delight in company, being easy to correct, and good friendship. These are the six qualities that lead to non-decline. Bhikkhus, all those in the past who did not decline in wholesome qualities did not decline because of these six qualities. All those in the future who will not decline in wholesome qualities will not decline because of these six qualities, and all those at present who are not declining wholesome qualities are not declining because of these six qualities. Characteristics. Only when the individual characteristics of phenomena are seen will the conditional characteristics of phenomena become manifest. Only when sakkata, conditional characteristic, becomes apparent will samanya, common characteristic, be seen. When samanya, common characteristic, is seen, vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, emerged. Sabhava lakkhana. Sabhava lakkhana means the individual characteristic of mental or physical phenomena. Regarding physical phenomena of 28 kinds, hardness or softness, for instance, belongs to only the earth element, Paṭavi dhatu, and not to any other elements. Heat or cold is the particular characteristic of the fire element, Tejo dhatu. Cohesion and fluidity is that of water element, Apu dhatu. And the tension, pressure, or motion is that of wind element, Vayu dhatu, and so on. Sakata Lakkhana. Each and every individual characteristic of all psychophysical phenomena has three phases: arising, lasting, and disappearing, which are respectively termed in Pali Upada, Titi, and Bhanga. Upada means arising of a phenomenon. Titi is a duration or continuance or proceeding towards dissolution. Bhanga is breaking up or dissolution. These three phases are called Sankata Lakkhana, conditional characteristics. Samanya Lakkhana. The third characteristic of all psychophysical phenomena is called Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristic, such as the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and impersonality. In Pali, these three characteristics are termed Anicca Lakkhana, characteristic of impermanence; Dukkha Lakkhana, characteristic of ill, suffering, or unsatisfactoriness; and Anatta Lakkhana, characteristic of egolessness or impersonality. These characteristics are common to all physical and mental phenomena that are conditioned. They are, therefore, designated as Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristic. Of these three characteristics, our meditative practice is directed towards realization of the common characteristic of the phenomena. How do we make our meditative effort to realize the characteristic of the phenomena? We should observe or notice them the moment they arise. Only then will we realize their characteristics, but not otherwise. Better. Better it is to live one day virtuous and meditative than to live 100 years immoral and uncontrolled. Better it is to live one day wise and meditative than to live 100 years foolish and uncontrolled. Better it is to live one day strenuous and resolute than to live 100 years sluggish and dissipated. To sum up, how is insight developed? Insight is developed by meditating on the 5 aggregates of grasping. Why and when do we meditate on the aggregates? We meditate on the aggregates whenever they arise in order that we may not cling to them. If we fail to meditate on mind and matter as they arise, clingings arise. We cling to them as permanent, good, and as ego. If we meditate on mind and matter as they arise, clingings do not arise. It is plainly seen that all are impermanent, suffering, mere processes. Once clingings cease, the path arises leading to Nibbana. These, then, are the elements of insight meditation. Just as if you are seeing it with your eyes, you will find the abdomen rising when you breathe in and falling when you breathe out. The rising should be noted mentally as rising, and the falling as falling. If the movement is not evident by just noting it mentally, keep touching the abdomen with the palm of your hand. Do not alter the manner of your breathing, neither slow it down nor make it faster. Do not breathe too vigorously either. You will tire if you change the manner of your breathing. Breathe steadily as usual, and note the rising and falling of the abdomen as they occur, noted mentally, not verbally. In Vipassana meditation, what you name or say doesn't matter. What really matters is to know or perceive. While noting the rising of the abdomen, do so from the beginning to the end of the movement, just as if you are seeing it with your eyes. Do the same with the following movement. Note the rising movement in such a way that your awareness of it is concurrent with the movement itself. The movement and the mental awareness of it should coincide in the same way as a stone thrown hits the target. Similarly with the falling movement. When this has been noted once or twice, your mind may wander elsewhere while you are noting the abdominal movement. This must also be noted by mentally saying, wandering, wandering. When this has been noted once or twice, the mind stops wandering, in which case you go back to noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. If the mind reaches somewhere, note as reaching, reaching. Then go back to the rising and falling of the abdomen. If you imagine meeting somebody, note as meeting, meeting. Then back to the rising and falling. If you imagine meeting and talking to somebody, note as talking, talking. In short, whatever thought or reflection occurs should be noted. If you imagine, note as imagining. If you think, thinking. If you plan, planning. If you perceive, perceiving. If you reflect, reflecting. If you feel happy, happy. If you feel bored, bored. If you feel glad, glad. If you feel disheartened, disheartened. Noting all these acts of consciousness is called Cittanupassana. This noting will become easier after about 2 days. In the beginning, it will suffice to note 1 or 2 movements only, thus right step, left step. When walking fast, and raising, dropping, when walking slowly. This noting will become easier after about 2 days. Then go on to noting the 3 movements as rising, pushing forward, and dropping. As the Buddha said in Anguttara Nikāya, Paṅḍiṭabhivaṃsa, Kankama Sutta, Bhikkhus, there are these 5 benefits in walking meditation. What 5? 1 becomes capable of journeys. 1 becomes capable of striving. 1 becomes healthy. What 1 has eaten, drunk, consumed, and tasted is properly digested. The concentration attained through walking meditation is long-lasting because these are the 5 benefits in walking meditation. The last benefit is the most important for the practice. If you can develop the concentration in walking and carry it to sitting practice continuously, you can make faster progress in the practice. The rise and fall. Better it is to live 1 day seeing the rise and fall of things than to live 100 years without ever seeing the rise and fall of things. Itchiness. For instance, if a sensation of itchiness intervenes and the yogi desires to scratch because it is hard to bear, both the sensation and the desire to get rid of it should be noted, without immediately getting rid of the sensation by scratching. If one goes on perseveringly, noting thus, the itchiness generally disappears, in which case one reverts to noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. The itchiness does not in fact disappear. One has, of course, to eliminate it by scratching. But first, the desire to do so should be noted. All the movements involved in the process of eliminating this sensation should be noted, especially the touching, pulling and pushing, and scratching movements, with an eventual reversion to noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. Need not take long. When samadhi, concentration, and jnana, insight, are strong, the distinctive knowledge can come at any moment. It can come in a single bend of the arm or in a single stretch of the arm. Such attainment can come at any moment and need not take long. That is why the yogi should note with diligence all the time. He should not relax in his noting, thinking this little lapse should not matter much. In the commentary on Pugalapanyati, the following occurs: making strenuous efforts in insight meditation with the strength of implicit faith in it, an individual can realize the knowledge of the path and its fruition while walking, standing, sitting, lying down, or taking light food or heavy meals. The resting time for the yogi. The time he is asleep is the resting time for the yogi. But for the really serious yogi, he should limit his sleeping time to about 4 hours. This is the midnight time, permitted by the Buddha. 4 hours sleep is quite enough. If the beginner in meditation thinks that 4 hours sleep is not enough for health, he may extend it to 5 or 6 hours. 6 hours sleep is clearly enough for health. At other times, in his waking moments, he should be noting continuously and without rest. That is why, as soon as he awakens, he should note the awakening state of his mind as awakening, awakening. If he cannot yet make himself aware of this, he should begin noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. Mindful and clearly comprehending after noting in his mind the idea of rising. As the Buddha said in Anguttara Nikaya, Tika Nipata, Apanyaka Sutta. And how is a bhikkhu intent on wakefulness? Here, during the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, a bhikkhu purifies his mind of obstructive qualities. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive qualities. In the middle watch of the night, he lies down on the right side in the lion's posture, with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and clearly comprehending, after noting in his mind the idea of rising. After rising, in the last watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive qualities. It is in this way that a bhikkhu is intent on nothing else. When you note rising, the rising is one thing. The awareness is one thing. Only these two exist. When you note falling, the falling is one. The awareness is one. Only these two. The knowledge comes clear in you of its own accord. When you lift one foot in walking, one is the lifting, the other is the awareness. Only these two exist. When you push it forward, the pushing and the awareness. When you put it down, the putting down and the awareness. Matter and awareness. These two only, nothing else. Both concepts and realities appear to the beginner. If you note left, right, only concepts like legs will appear to you. If you note rising, falling, only concepts like the abdomen will appear to you. This may be true to some of the beginners, but it is not true to think that the concepts will keep coming up. Both concepts and realities appear to the beginner. Some people instruct the beginners to meditate on realities only. This is impossible. To forget concepts is quite impracticable at the beginning. What is practicable is to observe concepts combined with realities. As your mindfulness and concentration grow stronger, all the concepts disappear. The Buddha himself used the language of concepts and told us to be aware, I am walking, etc., when we walk, bend, or stretch. He did not use the language of realities and tell us to be aware. It is supporting, moving, etc. Although you meditate using the language of concepts like walking, bending, stretching, as your mindfulness and concentration grow stronger, all the concepts disappear and only the realities like support and moving appear to you. When you reach the stage of the knowledge of disillusion, although you meditate, walking, neither the legs nor the body appear to you. Only the successive movements are there. Although you meditate, bending, there will not be any arms or legs, only the movement. Although you meditate, rising, falling, there will be no image of the abdomen or the body, only the movement out and in. These, as well as swaying, are functions of the air element. If there is cause, there is effect. Mind and matter are found to be working in a pair. Only when there is intention to bend is there the form bending. Only when there is intention to stretch is there the form stretching. There is effect only when there is cause. Only when there is something to see do you see. If there is something to see, you can't help seeing it. You hear when there is something to hear. You feel happy only when there is reason to be happy. You worry when there is cause to worry. If there is cause, there is effect. You cannot help it. There is nothing that lives and does what it desires. There is no self, no ego, no I. Only process of arising and passing away. Buddha taught walking meditation 2 times. In the great discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha taught walking meditation 2 times. In the section called Postures, he said that a monk knows, I am walking when he is walking, knows I am standing when he is standing, knows I am sitting when he is sitting, and knows I am lying down when he is lying down. In another section called Clear Comprehension, the Buddha said, a monk applies clear comprehension in going forward and in going back. Clear comprehension means the correct understanding of what one observes. To correctly understand what is observed, a yogi must gain concentration. And in order to gain concentration, he must apply mindfulness. Therefore, when the Buddha said, monks, apply clear comprehension, we must understand that not only clear comprehension must be applied, but also mindfulness and concentration. Thus, the Buddha was instructing meditators to apply mindfulness, concentration, and clear comprehension while walking, while going forward and back. Walking meditation is, thus, an important part of this process. Before the yogi falls asleep, how should he note? All movements involved in lying down and arranging the arms and legs should be carefully and unremittingly noted. If there is no movement, not only stillness of the body, go back to noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. Even when it is getting late and time for sleep, the yogi should not go to sleep yet, dropping his noting. A really serious and energetic yogi should practice mindfulness as if he were foregoing his sleep altogether. He should go on meditating until he falls asleep. After awakening, how should the yogi note? As soon as he awakens, he should note the awakening state of his mind as awakening, awakening. If he cannot yet make himself aware of this, he should begin noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. If he intends to go up from bed, he should note as intending to get up, intending to get up. He should then go on to note the changing movements he makes as he arranges his arms and legs. When he raises his head and rises, note as rising, rising. When he is seated, note as sitting, sitting. If he makes any changing movements as he arranges his arms and legs, all of these movements should also be noted. If there are no such changes, but only sitting quietly, he should revert to noting the rising and falling movements of the abdomen. Your mindfulness or awareness cannot follow. It is only when you act slowly that your concentration, mindfulness, and insight knowledge can keep up with the objects. That's the reason why you have to start the practice by doing everything slowly and mindfully. Indeed, in the beginning, if you do things fast, your mindfulness or awareness cannot follow. The monk who wants to cultivate the mindfulness directed to boy should do so diligently by not giving up mindfulness, just like the man who is holding a bowl of oil in the hand. Just like a person would carry an oil pot filled to the rim without letting it spill. In the same way, one who wishes to attain Nibbana, which one has not attained before, should protect one's mind well. You can change touching points. When the rising and falling fade away, you are supposed to note sitting, touching, or lying, touching. You can change touching points. For example, you note sitting, touching. Paying attention to a touch point on the right foot and then note sitting, touching, focusing a touching point on the left foot. Thus, you can shift your attention from one touch point to another, or you can shift your attention to 4, 5, or 6 points alternately. Any touching point is possible to note. Any touching point is possible to note. If you note, for instance, a touching on one's buttock as touching, touching, that is correct. Note it on one's knee as touching, touching. That is correct. Note it on one's hands as touching, touching. That is correct. Note it on one's head as touching, touching. That is correct. Note in and out breath as touching, touching. That is correct. Note it in one's intestines or liver as touching, touching. That is correct. Note it in one's own abdomen as touching, touching. That is correct. Only 2 types of object to note. Noting rising and falling demands neither too much concentration, as is not a momentous kind of object, nor excessive enthusiasm, as it's only 2 types of objects to note. Thus, the balance can be kept between concentration and energy. Sit and walk alternately an hour each. Too much walking tends to arouse more energy but less concentration, so one is scheduled to sit and walk alternately an hour each. Thus, the balance can be kept between concentration and energy. Approaching the goal. When approaching the finishing line, a sprinter must keep running without slacking. When approaching the goal, a yogi must keep striving and noting without slacking. Gaps. If there is a gap between 2 floor planks, dust and sand enter. If there is no continuity of mindfulness and there is a gap, defilements enter. If there is a concentration breakdown, defilements enter through the gap. Confession. When a criminal is interrogated intensively and repeatedly, he has to confess the truth. When the object of mindfulness is noted intensively and repeatedly, It has to reveal the truth of impermanence, suffering, and being mere phenomenon, without having any abiding self. Getting closer to Nibbana. Each step of a person walking towards the Shwedagon Pagoda takes him a step closer to it, whether he is interested in getting there or not. Each noting of a yogi mindfully walking on the path through Nibbana bring him closer to Nibbana, whether he is interested in getting there or not. Sharp and bright. A knife is sharp only if it is whetted, otherwise it becomes blunt. Brass vessels are shiny only if they are polished, otherwise they become dull. Similarly, a yogi's insight is sharp and bright only if he is mindful. Swim to Nibbana. A swimmer has to keep his arms and legs moving all the time. A yogi cannot afford to give any rest to the application of mindfulness. He too has to keep it moving all the time. 8. Maganga. The Dhammas comprising the 8 Maganga are taking place. This is how they take place. The effort to note is sama vayama, right effort. The act of mindfulness is samasati, right mindfulness. To remain concentrated on the object of meditation is sama samadhi, right concentration. These 3 are samadhi maganga. Rightly understanding the object of meditation is right view. Bringing one's mind to really knowing nama rupa as they are is right thinking, sama sankappa. Right view, sama ditti, and right thinking, sama sankappa. These 2 are panya maganga, wisdom, part of the right path. The 3 factors of concentration are part of the right path, and the 2 factors of the wisdom are part of the right path, are said to be karaka maganga, 5 active parts of the right path. In the commentary, they are described as 5 workers, maganga. In worldly life, if a job can only be done by 5 workers as a team, it needs to be done by them unitedly, in harmony. In the same way, these 5 active parts of the right path are in harmony with every act of noting and knowing. Every time these 5 active parts of the right path gather strength through such harmony, extraordinary vipassana insight develops. Next, abstaining from unwholesomeness, some bodily acts of killing, stealing, and illicit sexual conduct is sama kamanta. Abstaining from verbal acts of telling lies, backbiting, abusing, and fruitless speech is sama vacha. Abstaining from wrong means of livelihood is sama ajiva. These 3 are sila maganga. These maganga are accomplished with the taking and observing of the precepts. So are they with every active noting. So are they 8 maganga developed with every active noting, with the attainment of Nibbana getting nearer and nearer in the same way as in walking. Every step brings one nearer and nearer to one's destination. So also the yogi attains Nibbana with the last act of noting. Creepers and weeds. If a tree is overgrown with creepers and weeds, it cannot develop. If the mind is overgrown with creepers and weeds of hindrances, it cannot develop. What is satipatthana? Satipatthana is mindfulness of a noted object by entering it, rushing into it, spreading over it so that the mind enters the noted object, i.e., the rising movement of the abdomen rushes into it, spreads all over it so that it, the mind, stays closely and firmly on it, the object. The process is the same when noting falling and so on. Seeing impermanence. Vipassana is the insight knowledge that perceives the arising objects in the light of the threefold characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and being mere phenomena. When a hot sensation is noted as heat, the heat that is occurring is anicca, an impermanent thing. The disappearance of the heat after its appearance is anicca lakkhana, the characteristic of impermanence. And comprehending that it is impermanence after seeing its disappearance is aniccanupassana, contemplation of impermanence. Of the three characteristics, if impermanence is seen, then suffering and non-self can also be considered seen. Fresh, clean air. Fresh, clean air is necessary for life. Without it, one becomes dizzy or unhealthy or even dies. If you practice a lot to easily get the fresh, clean air of Satipatthana, it is likely to be with you everywhere.